Hey everyone, this is Nathan Allen with Poets and Quants and continuing on with the Online MBA backstage event. And now we have Joel Eaton. He is the Associate Director of Admissions and Recruiting from the University of Minnesota's Carlson School of Management. Joel, how are you today?
Doing pretty well. It's we've had a few days of much nicer weather for Minnesota, so kind of enjoying the tropical 50 degrees.
Yeah, things are starting to thaw out a little bit.
Yep. hmm
Your weather might be nicer than what we're having in the Bay Area in California right now. It's been chilly and windy.
Ooh,
So
a little bit of a swap going on.
yeah. So let's go ahead and jump in. As you were just telling me before we went live, the Online MBA program at Carlson is now 5 years old. It's obviously one of the newer programs out there, pre-COVID. So there might be some viewers here that are watching that don't know much about the program. So why don't we just start with the basics? Give us an introduction to your school, the Carlson School, the Online MBA program, missions, values, where you all are located physically, and reputation.
Yeah, absolutely. So great to be here. Really excited to talk, obviously, about the Online MBA and then also the Carlson School of Management. So when it comes to the Online MBA, it is partnered very, very closely with our part-time MBA, which is a little bit more seasoned and traditional of an MBA format. In fact, the two programs have much more in common with each other than they do have differences. So even though the online option is a little bit newer, it's not that it was something that was just completely drawn up out of nowhere. Really, the main structural difference between the part-time and online MBA is that the part-time has two classes that are only offered in person, whereas the online MBA can be completed entirely virtually. So a lot of the courses, really kind of that framework was already created when the online was really starting to be conceptualized. When it comes to the Carlson School of Management as a whole, we really follow the motto of business as a force for good. We certainly are hoping to prepare business leaders that are both current or moving into leadership positions to have a strong impact on their organization, but also on the communities that they really serve. So whether that's having an increased focus in sustainability or some of the more social impacts of potentially breaking down some of the traditional barriers that have existed within the business and professional realm. So that's really kind of the focus that a lot of our learnings come from here at the Carlson School. And then the Carlson School is part of the Greater University of Minnesota. The campus itself is housed at the Twin Cities campus, which is located just outside the heart of Minneapolis, Minnesota. I know that location might not be quite as important for some folks in an online program, but a couple times throughout the just academic experience that our online students have, they do come to campus. So there is plenty to do in and around the Twin Cities when you are here. And I'm sure we'll be talking about some of those experiences a little bit later on. And also when it comes to the Carlson School of Management, we are pretty highly ranked, both when it comes to our individual MBA programs and then as a business school in general. So simply being able to put Carlson School on your resume is really enough to start opening some doorways.
Right. Yeah, totally. We definitely, classified Carlson's move into this space as one of the bigger ones, just in terms of reputation of the school.
Mhm.
So yeah, definitely agree there. So before we move on, it looks like we've had a few people join. So I just want to go ahead and say that if you all have any questions that you want to ask Joel specifically, this is a unique one where you've got him here, not, two or three people. So feel free to put those into the chat and we can address those as they come up. But let's go ahead and talk about the academic experience of the program. What's a typical class size like? Are you all in cohorts? If so, or do those cohorts, have any cross-pollination in terms of, getting to know each other? What sort of flexibility and pacing do you all have? Group work versus individual? concentrations, all those kind of academic intricacies.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try to tackle all of those. If there's anything that I miss, just feel free to chime in. I'm not
We'll
trying
remind
to
you.
avoid.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the flexibility of the program, the online MBA can be completed in as little as 2 years or as many as 7 years. No one is tied to a certain timeline when they apply or at any point in the program, and there's no penalty for completing the program on one timeline versus the other. So it really allows you to take classes in a way that fits with your calendar, whether that's having to navigate around your professional obligations, any family obligations, or other personal obligations. On average, folks tend to complete the program usually between 3.5 to 4 years. So kind of going exactly at half the full-time pace of consider our traditional full-time MBA option. But again, if you want to go that 2-year pace and really kind of run through the program, get your MBA, and just start moving on with the next steps of your professional career, that is certainly an option. So kind of because everyone has this flexible scheduling, we don't have cohorts in the traditional sense, since everyone is moving through at a different pace. That being said, when it comes to the typical class size, if you're looking at everyone we bring in during a typical year, it's usually between 40 to 60 candidates. And then for individual classes themselves, those can be anywhere from like 20 to 30 students for the required core courses, and then a little bit more variation when it comes to electives, just based off the popularity of that elective. But individual classes themselves can be anywhere from like 10 to 20 students or 20 to 30 for those electives. When it comes to group work versus individual work, again, you're probably going to hear me say this a lot of it depends, which I know isn't always the most helpful answer, but it's also the most accurate. So some classes, financial accounting, are going to be classes that are a little bit more just naturally individual based, and it will be more kind of your own contribution where you're really competing or completing the program at your own pace. But then we have the majority of our classes are going to be much more group work oriented. Not only because the business environment naturally is all about teamwork and collaboration, but also to help kind of give you some of those natural connections with your classmates, because we recognize it's harder to form those natural connections in a purely virtual environment. So having more group work can certainly help not only make the classes more enjoyable, but it's just a more accurate representation of the business environment. Let's see, was there anything about your question that I missed?
I think we hit it all. I did have kind of a follow-up to move along with that and you might take this time to share the average age of the students that are in your program. But for students who are at that point in their life where they are on track with a career, and they might have a family and children that they're taking care of, and they're a little bit nervous about adding this rigorous MBA program into their schedule. What sort of academic support, what kind of reassurances do you have for those sorts of students that just already have a ton to juggle and want to do this, but might be a little bit nervous about it?
Yeah, no, great question. And the online MBA really, it seems like it naturally attracts folks who are kind of in that spot where they are already juggling multiple obligations. And of course, it can be a little daunting to add in an entire degree program on top of all of that. So our typical class profile, on average, folks have around 10 years of work experience before starting the online MBA. The three programs that I work closest are the full-time, the part-time, and online MBA, and the online is certainly the most experienced. So around 10 years of work experience, average age is around 35. But again, those are obviously averages. We have plenty of folks who are more experienced or less experienced moving into the program. When it comes to the services that we offer, we have the two most frequently utilized are the student affairs team as well as the career center team. And the student affairs team is fantastic when it comes to balancing work, personal, and academic life, as well as just getting an understanding of literally what you're signing up for. Just because you know that 2 classes are both 2 credits doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be an equal time commitment for both. If you're signing up for econometrics, they're probably going to tell you that you might want to dial down a little bit in your other classes because it's just going to take a lot more time for most folks. So they have a lot more context of really how much time you need to put into the classroom outside of the classroom in order to be successful. And then also whenever it comes to classes, there's always just that challenge of, well, this class is only offered in the spring, and maybe you've been building your course load so that you can complete it on a certain timeline, but all the classes you wanted to take in the spring aren't offered. Well, the student affairs team will be able to work with you early on so that you don't reach those bottlenecks that can sometimes exist. When it comes to the Career Center, they're also a fantastic and by far and away the most often utilized service that we have at the Carlson School. A lot of folks who come into the program kind of have like 3 different categories, and the Career Center will work with someone a little bit differently based off which category they're in, and then also just based off their own specific background and career path. Those categories, one of them are the accelerators, folks who have been going down their career path and want to continue down that path, maybe at a quicker rate or breach some of the ceilings that are harder to breach without an MBA. The other category would be the changers, folks who want to make that pivot maybe into a new role or a new focus or an entirely new industry. And then we have the explorers, folks who are maybe just not quite as feeling as fulfilled with their career path as what they have been, but they don't know what that destination is. And so the Career Center really works with folks, regardless of why you're using the MBA, but giving you some of the resources to find out what's out there, some of the skills and workshops in order to develop some of the just skills that employers might be looking for, and then also making connections with graduates, with employers. And then for some folks, we do have recruiting opportunities available as well.
Awesome, thanks. And what do you think is the main key differentiator of your program and some of your competitor programs?
Yeah, great question. What I hear from our graduates 99% of the time of what they enjoyed out of the program the most are the experiential learning opportunities. I think I can certainly speak for myself, but I think we've all been in that situation where academically you learn how to do a certain task or a certain project, but then when you're in the work environment, it actually plays out extremely differently. And it's almost as though you're having to completely relearn that task. And it can be a little bit frustrating. And obviously you have that ambiguity there as well of being presented with a project, but not knowing how to move forward. And the live cases that we have embedded in the program and just the ability for you to get practice into what you're actually learning in the environment is great to help with that transition so that when you are bringing what you're learning into your own place of work, it's not like you have to completely relearn everything because your work does it differently than how you learned about it in school.
Right. Yeah. Thanks. And you started to talk a little bit about the 3 different paths career-wise that people tend to fall into whenever they join the program. So I'm wondering if you could share a little bit more about what those 3 paths are, and then how career services fits into the program from entry to exit.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times, the Career Center is one of the first offices that students hear from once they are admitted and confirmed in the program, so that our Career Center can start formulating kind of the way that they want to work with you over the next course of the few years. So if you are an accelerator, then they will be able to pretty easily match you with some of the graduates and employers that are specifically in the field that you want to move into. And so that's just kind of a much more, a lot of times the accelerators are the folks who are looking for the least amount of guidance just because they're already going along their current path, and it might be they just want the MBA. Whereas the changers and the explorers tend to typically utilize the Career Center a little bit more just by virtue of how they want to use the MBA. For a changer, it can be a little intimidating to want to pivot into a completely different workplace. Again, whether that's an entirely new industry or a new function or a new role. And it can be intimidating because you might be looking at your resume and saying, none of my experiences back up being hired into this new industry. And I want to move into HR, but everything I have is marketing. And so the Career Center will work with you to give you workshops and skill building seminars so that you can develop your resume with some of those experiences that would be valuable for the new destination that you want to be in. And then they can also help make connections. I know it's a age-old saying, but the whole it's 10% what you know and 90% who you know. Certainly making those connections in the newer industry because you just might not naturally have them from being in your current path for so long. And then the final group are the explorers. Here's where we have, kind of like the Myers-Briggs analysis, but we have various tests to get a better understanding, both from the Career Center, but also maybe for the students themselves of what do you really like to do? And hopefully being able to say, well, if we know you're really enjoying these elements of the program, here are the jobs and the roles that naturally utilize those skills. And so you might get a better sense of fulfillment going in that direction.
Great. And then what sorts of opportunities and connections are there for alumni networks and mentorships and those sorts of things for students who, are exploring a little bit, or maybe they know where they want to go, but are just trying to make some sort of shift?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a network of over 55,000 graduates across the Carlson School, and our graduates are very active. A lot of them received some kind of assistance or mentorship when they were moving through the program, or even just as a prospective student. And so a lot of them want to give back, and they just enjoyed their time at Carlson, and so they enjoy being engaged. So in just a couple of weeks, on the 26th, we'll be hosting it's called a Professional Series MBA workshop, where we'll be having a panel hosted by myself and the Graduate Business Career Center, and we'll have several graduate panelists on there, really to just talk about their time and their experiences. And so there's a lot of opportunities for networking, either hosted directly through the Career Center, through some of our other student organizations. There's also some involvement with our classes so that you can form those connections, whether you know the destination of your newer industry or you're still in that exploration mode.
Great. And then next, I'm wondering a little bit about, Carlson is one of those schools that we know has a reputation and just lots of global experiences and global immersions from undergraduate up to the graduate programs. So I'm wondering, whenever you all built this online MBA program and now that you're into it a few years later, what are some areas and how are you preparing students to work with and lead people who might be have some differences from them?
Yeah, no, great question. And we are seeing kind of those cross-cultural competencies becoming more and more important over the years, both at the individual level and that just the professional landscape is much more diverse than it was decades ago. And then also because business itself really doesn't operate inside of a vacuum. And even if your organization is housed, let's say in the Twin Cities, they may very well have partners or vendors or clients on an international level. So we do still have study abroad and global immersion options for the online MBA so that you can get that personal experience. Some folks, obviously, it's a little bit more challenging to study abroad, especially in these professional programs where you might be working full time, you might have a family, or all those other obligations that you're juggling that we were talking about earlier. So you can't just uproot yourself for a couple weeks or an entire semester. So for those students, one of our still immersion opportunities is by coming to campus and taking a week-long course specifically in international business, where we talk about different problem-solving behaviors, some of those cross-cultural elements. And then there's also going to be networking opportunities and skill building workshops embedded within that week long of classes so that you can really take full advantage of the fact that you're in person. So that's one of the ways that we help to prepare folks for a much more just culturally diverse classroom environment and professional environment. And then also just our list of electives. I was looking at our management electives, and I think we had, it was like 15 credits worth, which is almost half the credits that you can take as electives, were specifically around cross-cultural management, cross-cultural negotiation, and communication. So there's no shortage of classes that you'd be able to take specifically around this competency.
Great. And the next question is asking for you to look a little bit into the future, a few years, and how you see the program evolving. But I want to start the question by asking for a little bit of reflection. Now, 5 years into it, you all launched before the pandemic, and then the pandemic happened, and it's ongoing. And so first, just reflecting on changes that you've seen, what you all have done right, what you want to do better, and then how that's going to impact your next few evolutions over the next few years.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to kind of the online MBA since its inception, one of the greatest factors that it's had is the resiliency through the pandemic. Obviously, originally being designed for it to be fully virtual, it wasn't quite nearly as affected as our full-time MBA program that's entirely in person, or some of the other degree offerings where you can choose a hybrid delivery of either in person or virtually. So that part was a huge plus, just in that there was far less ambiguity, and we certainly saw the program grow pretty rapidly kind of at the onset of the pandemic, which I'm guessing every online option everywhere also grew when COVID really started to make its way to the US. In terms of what I can see us doing better in the future is going to go pretty hand in hand with kind of how I just naturally see it changing. Is I think there's been no shortage of studies that just show that it's so much harder to remain engaged in an online format in comparison to the in-person. You're obviously always going to have those folks who the online format is just naturally better, but for many, it's a very different environment. And kind of the positive, and it's weird to say that there's a positive out of COVID, but with COVID, seeing a shift of almost everything being virtual, we've seen major companies like Google and Twitter say that they're going to maintain to allow their workforce to remain virtually. And so with, I think, us coming out of COVID with still a pretty strong virtual presence, that's naturally going to, I think, shift resources around to make sure that we're putting more of an emphasis on increasing quality of life for virtual programs. There's going to be more studies that show what effective virtual delivery is like, how to stay engaged, not only academically, but also make those connections on a professional level. So I think that'll be one of the most positive outcomes, is that we'll just be able to deliver a stronger program because online is becoming it's much more the norm rather than the exception.
Great, totally. And then lastly, I just want to ask for prospective students who are thinking about, they know they want to do an MBA, but they're not sure about the format yet. There's online, there's part-time, there's executive, there's full-time. What advice do you have for finding the program that's right for them?
Yeah, the first answer that I immediately have offhand is get in touch. I'm always more than happy to help answer that question. A lot of times, if you look at the general class profile of the full-time versus the online, you might see some differences. The online, the average years of work experience is 10, full-time is closer to 5. But a lot of times that's more an indication of who's naturally drawn to that program, not really what the admissions team is looking for. And so I would really just encourage you to reach out to myself, one of the other members of the admissions team, so that we can learn more about your personal background, your professional background, what you want out of the program, because that can really help formulate what our recommendation would be for the best one. Online is great because it's extremely flexible around the work style, which if that's the type of learning environment you want, wonderful, but maybe there's a different one that's a better fit based off how you learn best.
Awesome. And just to wrap it up, how do people get in touch with you? What's the best way to reach out to you and other people in your office?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have it in my Zoom name, jceaton@umn.edu. Feel free to reach out to me directly, and I'm more than happy to answer questions. I'm confident that I didn't answer every single question that was on the mind of everyone that's engaged, but I certainly hope that I did. And I'm always the type where as soon as we're done here, I'll think of the 20 things that I should have said. But if anyone has a question that they haven't been able to ask, feel free to send me an email. You can also reach out to omba@umn.edu. A lot of times those emails get filtered to me since I'm the most frequent contact for the online program. But yeah, and if you want someone else's perspective, I'm more than happy to bring in someone else on the admissions team.
Great. All right. That's a lot of info on how to reach out to you. So that's perfect. Joel, thank you very much for your time and your insights. Everyone, this has been Joel Eaton with the University of Minnesota's Carlson School of Management Online MBA program. And my name is Nathan Allen, and this is the Poets and Quants Online MBA Backstage event. Thanks.
Thank you.